Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery here. It's a beautiful Wednesday morning. Today is August 14th, 2024. And do you know what's special about today, about August 14th? Is that any small business that enrolls in the 4-week funding program, they will be ready to go to funding September 13th. So one of the really great things about this new free grant subsidized resource is its predictability. So what's wonderful, and I'll go through and describe what we do and why we do it and answer your questions, but we know that anyone that enrolls today, in 28 days, we're going to be ready to apply for business funding. 28 days. So let's go ahead and cover how is it that we help small businesses qualify for funding. Let's imagine that you're standing in front of a safe and someone said, hey, if you can open that safe, you can have all the money that's inside of it. What would you need? You would need the combination. You would need to know the numbers to turn that dial back and forth to be able to open the door to get the money out of the safe. Well, that is actually a pretty good analogy of what we do to help small businesses. There's plenty of money. There's millions and millions, billions and billions of dollars that lenders want to loan to small businesses. But we need to have the right combination. We need to meet the underwriting criteria to get approved for that funding. And that's what we do. We applied for a grant as a 501c3 nonprofit. We've received a grant, and we provide a curriculum, a hands-on, practical, transparent, legal, and effective curriculum, and it's free to the participants. Free. So let's go ahead and go through our agenda here. Our 501c3 nonprofit has received a national grant to assist entrepreneurs in creating a fundable business in less than a month using a proven, legal, and reliable process broken down into 4 weekly steps. I'm navigating here off of 4weekfunding.com. And this is a great resource because it literally breaks down what we do in each of the 4 weeks. It also attempts to describe why we do each of those steps and to clarify the deliverables. So very, very transparent. Now, it cost us money to perform this service, just like if you went to a doctor or an accountant or wherever, there's a cost for services to be performed. However, because of the grant, the entire cost, the $5,000 for each participant to go through, is 100% covered by the grant. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get through the 4 weeks. So let's talk for a moment about what's included, because these are like the numbers in the combination. If we don't have the right combination, we can't open that theoretical safe we talked about earlier. If we don't meet the funding criteria, we won't get approved for funding. Now, what's a little bit more complicated is that there's lots of different sources of capital for businesses to access, to start and grow. Not all of them has exactly the same underwriting criteria. But in general, we have captured what's typically necessary to qualify for a larger amount of business funding. So let's go through what's included. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to type that in to the Q&A. Well, we start the process with a business plan. Now, of course, if we have a client or a participant that already has a business plan, we can use theirs. Throughout the 4-week process, if it's not broke, why fix it? So if they have a good business plan, we can use theirs. But in most cases, most entrepreneurs, they have the vision, they have the dream, they have the passion, but a lot of times they don't have a really good business plan. The business plan is important to tell the lender who we are, what we do, how much money we want, and what we're going to use it for. I was working with one of our clients yesterday. His name is Marco, and we're working on a $5 million capital raise. So it doesn't matter if we're working on something that's small or medium, like Marco's, or even large, 10 million plus. these elements universally apply. So we need to start with a business plan. Now, one of the most important elements of the business plan that we focus on is called the use of funds. That is the detailed listing of what the client, the participant, the borrower, what they want money for and how much. So in other words, is some of it for inventory, is some of it for equipment, is some of it for expansion? It's too good to be true to think that we can just say, hey, I just want money. We're going to have to create a loan package that tells the story in the way that the lender needs to see it to get approved. And that starts with a business plan for most sources of capital, and the use of funds needs to be well thought out. So we can't just apply for funding, say, give me as much as I can get, and I don't really want to disclose to anyone what I'm going to use it for. That won't float. Personal loans and business loans are different, and what we're doing is preparing individuals for business loans. So I do understand that you could just go get a personal loan and you don't have to give a lot of details. A lot of these steps we're talking about today would not be relevant for a personal loan, but they are for business loans. And business loans are great because it's wise to separate the business's financials from the business owners, and also businesses can borrow a lot more money. Also, we're going to work on seed capital in week 1. So this is where we identify how much, if anything, that the client wants, the participant wants up front for working capital, and then we pursue that. Different people will qualify for different amounts of seed capital, but these are the activities we do in the very first week. Does anyone have questions on week 1? So there's a 4-week process we go through. My job today is to make sure that you understand what we do and why. All right, Eric's asking, well, why does seed capital come into play? And his point is right. We don't have a fundable business yet. It takes 4 weeks to complete the process. So the reason that we bring this up is that some clients lack solvency. They lack liquidity. They need some working capital now, even before we get finished with the 28-day process. But some clients we talk to and work with, they don't need seed capital. They don't want to mess with this, but many do. The amount of seed capital they'll receive, we don't know. We get an app filled out. We have a consortium of over 40 different lenders. They don't do any hard inquiries. They compete for our client's business. And we had a client this morning, and he received 28 different offers just this morning. So most people will get multiple offers to pick from. Thank you, Eric, for that question. Anyone else have questions on week 1? Okay. Week 2 is now we're going to make sure that the business is in good standing. And if not, we'll create one. It is very important to have a unique commercial address to qualify for most larger business loans. So what does this mean? Well, a residential address isn't going to work. A post office box isn't going to work. And those shared addresses that you might get from like a WeWork or a Regus, where you have the same suite number as others, typically won't work. So if the client has that, great, we check the box and move on. In many cases, they don't. So we provide a unique business address. And I know it may be that it's easy for you to sit back and say, some of this makes sense, but I don't really know about that. I work from home and it's just fine. It's not an issue. This is not a popularity discussion. It frankly doesn't matter what you think, nor does it matter what I think. It's the reality. What does it take to have a fundable business? And this is more important than a lot of people think. It's crucial. There's many sources of capital. If we don't have a good address, there will not be any funding. It's an all or nothing proposition. But again, we provide that for free. As far as the entity itself, do they have an LLC, a C Corp, a S Corp, a partnership, a sole proprietorship? What do they have now? Is that what they want to use for funding as we prepare it for funding? Or conversely, do they want us to form a new entity? And we do that for free, part of the grant. And that new entity is nice because it's clean. I was talking to one of our clients, Herman, this morning, and he's on here this morning. So Herman's like a lot of our clients. He has a business that's been around for several years, but a lot of times those older businesses are not fundable, maybe because they haven't kept up with their tax returns, they're not compliant at the state or federal level, or maybe the business has been around, but it doesn't have strong financials. So in many cases, it's easier to hit the reset button and start a new business for the purpose of the capital raise rather than trying to clean up an old business. But we can go either way. So just like the business plan, I said, well, if the client has a business plan, we can use theirs. That's fine. If they already have money, they already have their own seed capital, they don't want ours, that's fine. If they already have a good address, we can use theirs. This is not about fixing anything that's not broke, but it is about creating a fundable business. So if the client wants us to and needs a new entity formed, we'll form that for them. In many cases, we can go for another round of funding. So we talked about the original seed capital here. In many cases, I'd go as far as to say, in most cases, once we get the entity filed, we can actually proceed with another round of funding, even though we've not made it to the end of the 28 days. Because once we have a business in good standing, it has credit capacity. So then we get to week 3. And again, if anyone has questions, comments, concerns, feel free to type it into the Q&A. Fiona's asking a good question. So there are some elements of the entity that's important. So for example, the business needs to have a business phone number that's listed with directory assistance, but that's free. It's called listyourself.net. We help clients with that. The phone number should not be a cell phone number. It should not be a residential number. Not many people have a home phone anymore, but Fiona, you're exactly right. There are some sub-bullets that are important for the entity to be compliant. We also want the entity, for instance, to have a website. It can be a very basic website. We have some student interns that'll develop the website for them if they don't have one. But you're right, Fiona, there's a few elements that's necessary to have the entity look fundable, such as the phone number and the website. But the phone number we can get for free. We can list it with directory assistance for free. We have the interns that'll develop a website if they need it. Great point. Okay, so now we get down to week 3. Week 3, now we're talking dollars and cents. So we will transfer. We will, it's guaranteed, it's a deliverable, it's a promise. We will transfer at least $10,000. Now, this is an area that draws a lot of questions and eyebrow raising. So let's talk through it. If you listen to me, it'll make sense. If you don't understand it, it may not. So why in the world would we transfer $10,000 to every participant? That sounds too good to be true. It must be a scam. Of course it's not. So the reason that we do that is collateral matters. When we go for business funding, most lenders, not all, because I've caveated this multiple times. There's different lenders and different loan programs, and not everyone has the same underwriting. There can be some subtle differences. But in general, these things are normally what's needed. The business plans, a solvent business, a good address, an entity in good standing, and here we are, collateral. Well, we look at a lot of business financials, and I can tell you most, not just many, most small businesses have what's called a collateral shortfall. They want more for funding than they have collateral. So we're no fools. We realize, well, if that's a common problem, let's fix it. So we will provide them $10,000 of collateral. Now, what is that? Is that gold bars that are dropped off by a Brinks truck at their front doorstep? No, it's in the form of accounts receivables. What's an accounts receivable? Well, as you hopefully learned in Accounting 101, accounts receivable is a legal debt that's owed to someone. So there's a creditor and there's a debtor. The debtor is the person that owes the money. So let's say it's Bill Smith. Bill Smith owes 10,000 so to the creditor, the person that's owed. So we literally, legally and ethically transfer 10,000 over to the participant. So now they have accounts receivable on their balance sheet. That's important because that makes the balance sheet look stronger. If the client needs more than 10,000, we can transfer hundreds of thousands or millions. But the bottom line is we need to have collateral on the balance sheet. And then since it is accounts receivable, then we work with the client to liquidate the accounts receivables. Some people have a deer in the headlight look, like liquidate receivables. What does that mean? Well, it's the same thing that you would expect, right? You collect the money that's owed. That's what responsible CEOs of businesses do. If your business is owed money, you collect it from the person that owes it or the organization that owes it, called the debtor. So this is a big deal because the grant covers it. We're transferring that $10,000 as part of the program. And again, if they need more than 10,000, we can transfer more. That's not a problem. And then the opportunity fund, so there's a and sign here called an ampersand. So in addition to this, that's number one, then there's number two. Businesses that have activity are more fundable than businesses that don't. So even though we're forming a new business here in many cases, now again, if the client has a fundable business, we don't need to form a new one. But even if we form a new one, the business is more fundable if it has daily deposits. And ideally, we'd like to see 5 to 7 deposits per month. You might say, well, that's a problem. It's a new business. I need funding to be able to get money coming in. That's fine. That's why we have the opportunity fund. So these are two different things that kick off in week 3, transferring the collateral and then starting the daily deposits. So then that gets us over to week 4. Week 4, now we're packaging everything up. I've given this story before, but I'll tell it again because it's true and it's relevant. So loan packaging is a big deal. When I used to work for the SBA, we had a part-time SBA advisor. Her office was across the hall, but one door down from mine. And her name's Shirley. And I don't work at the SBA anymore, and I don't think she does either. I think she's probably retired by now. But Shirley had her own side business that was approved by the SBA. She wasn't in conflict. And she charged between $5,000 and $10,000 just to do this for businesses. So a normal market price for just this one element of all 4 weeks is $5,000 to $10,000. And of course, it's included for free. So essentially here, we just simply put, it means we're getting everything pulled together and ready for funding. At that point, then we move on to funding if the client wants us to. If the client wants us to stop after week 4, I don't have the ability to draw a line right here, but there could be a line right here and we could just stop if that's what the client wants. Or we could move forward, which most do, and move forward to funding. So now what we do is we take all the data that we've gathered up here, and then we're able to put it into our proprietary, what's called a lender match AI technology. Simply put, data goes into the software program and it predicts where the client should go to funding, which bank, which lending program. So it's the matching for the right lender. And I mentioned I say up to 5 million. We're going to change this because we're working on a $5 million deal. We got pre-approval yesterday, and we should be able to move forward with that today. There's really no cap, no maximum. But I don't want you to think that's too good to be true, because the more we want to borrow, the more credible the business has to be, of course. But with that being said, on 4-week funding, then here you have a summary of the deliverables. Anyone that wants to participate in the program, they simply go here to the green button, they click on it, it pops open a new window on their screen, and then they're able to enroll. So let me pop up my agenda here again. So we covered, well, let's go back to this page, our main page, and pull back up the agenda. So We've reviewed the information on 4-week funding. There's also a brief little 5 or 6 minute video, but we've kind of covered it. The green button to apply, which we just hit and we showed you. And in 28 days, the participant will have a fundable business. What other questions do any of you have? Oh, the dollars and cents. Sorry, we didn't get to that. So the program is $5,000, but it's 100% covered by the grant. 100% covered by the grant. But here's how it's broken down, and I'll type it so you can see it as I say it. So the grant advances $4,000 up front. The remaining $1,000, the grant reimburses the remaining $1,000 after completion. So let's follow the math there. The program's $5,000. The grant advances $4,000 of that. Well, that leaves $1,000 left over. The participant pays a refundable deposit of $1,000, and then they get that back after we've gone through the 4 weeks and after we've gone through the funding. So, is there a refundable deposit due from the participant? There is. Why? You might say, why? Why don't we just give this away with no participant cost? Well, a number of reasons, but number one, I didn't approve the grant. It wasn't my grant to approve. But the people behind the grant felt that it made sense, and I think you and I probably agree, it makes sense that the participant has some skin in the game, because we're held accountable for outcomes. And every month we have to report our outcomes. And so one of the most simple outcomes is, did we finish the process in 28 days as pitched, as promoted? Certainly we need to do our part, but there's another party involved, right? The grant participant. So $4,000 is paid up front by the grant. The remaining $1,000 is after completion. So that's the way that it is. So if participants don't like that, then I guess they could go find somewhere else that they could get all of this for free. Someone else that we give them a free business plan, someone else that would help them get seed capital, someone else that would give them a free unique business address, someone else that would do the filing with the state, someone else that's going to give them $10,000 of collateral, someone else that's going to give them access to the opportunity fund, someone else that's going to do the free loan packaging, someone else that's going to do the loan matching to get them funding. I don't think they're going to find that anywhere else for free, because it would be impossible to do it if there wasn't a charge to the client or a third-party payer like the grant. So not to confuse it, we are not giving out grant money. Some people say, oh, no, I just want the grant money. Well, all participants benefit from the grant, as we've just covered. But no, we're not giving out. We don't write a business plan and say, I'd really like to have $1 million of grant money. That's unusual. Possible, but unusual. And you'd have to have a non-for-profit business that matches some grant that's out there. So I don't think that's going to happen. So normally money comes from one of 3 areas, and we can even add that, and we've talked about that before. So where does money come from to start or grow a business? There's 3 places. One would be debt. We'll talk about these. Second would be equity. And the third would be earned income that's reinvested. So debt means we go borrow it. It could be revolving. It could be a term loan. It could be a line of credit. It could be SBA or non-SBA. But regardless, debt's money we have to pay back. Equity is money that does not have to be paid back, does not have to be repaid. And then earned income means there's money coming in that we're reinvesting. So don't confuse people if you're one of our affiliates and say, oh, we can go get you $100,000 of grant money. And that's not true. We can go get them $5,000 of grant money to cover the program. Yes, but it's not that we have access to unlimited grant money to fund their business. That's not the case. So we don't want to make that mistake. All right, so Fiona has a good question, and it goes to what I said. Well, it goes to what I didn't say. What's another reason why there is a participant refundable deposit? Because you shouldn't take someone that's completely insolvent and say, hey, let's go form a business, because there's costs of running a business. And so many of those are determined by the business owner. But do you want to have employees? If so, you got to pay them. And even yourself, you should be paid as an employee of your company. Are you going to offer benefits? Are you going to hire an accountant to do tax returns for you? Are you going to have a website? Are you going to have a 1-800 number and so forth? So we can address the cost of the program very clearly and transparently. But sure, there's what we'll call incidental cost of running a business. And many of those are determined by the business owner themselves. So if someone doesn't have $1,000 to pay the refundable deposit, they're probably not ready to start a business, right? They've got some real solvency issues. Maybe they could be a referral partner and earn some income, or get a job and earn some income. But you and I have been around long enough. If you're completely insolvent, if you're completely broke, it's probably not a good time to build a credible business, because there's just incidental costs, right? Okay. So who else has any questions? And again, if you want one-on-one conversations, you can call us at your convenience. But does this make sense? So it's a great resource, right? So going back to where we started, you need to have a fundable business if you want business funding. It shouldn't be a mystery. It shouldn't be challenging. It shouldn't be frustrating. There's a process. We explain the process. Now, if someone didn't want to go through our grant subsidized program, they could do this on their own, right? They could go write their own business plan, get their own seed, all these steps they could do on their own. We're showing exactly what we do in the process that we do it. But because of the grant, it, I think, is a no-brainer. All right, so Jeff is asking about the cost of raising capital, and Jeff brings up a good point. So what is not free is if we're going to help the client go to funding. And thank you, Jeff. I didn't mean to not bring that up. So if a participant wants our help in getting funding, then we will guarantee a minimum of 100,000 in writing. If they go through the process, we know that we can get any business at least 100,000. Should be more, but at least 100,000. That's promised in writing. And there is a performance fee. The performance fee or success fee is paid after the funding, and it's 10%, 10%. Well, why do we charge that? Why don't we make that free too? Because we need to pay our affiliates. We have affiliates that are out helping build financial literacy and referring people into their landing pages. We pay, and again, we're very transparent. We pay our affiliates 5%, 5%. And every morning we're coming in and wiring out money from what the affiliates earned the prior day. And then we also have what's called master affiliates. So we're not MLM or network marketing, anything like that, but we do have leaders. So leaders get a 2-point override. So of that 10% performance fee out of the funding, we're paying 7% of that. So it's not like we're sitting back and profiting off of this. We're making 3 cents on the dollar, 7 cents on the dollar is being paid out to the referral partners. So thank you for clarifying that. Questions. All right, Peter's asking, can he be an affiliate and refer himself in? Yep, that's fine. And so you could become an affiliate, then be a participant, then you would get paid your 5%. So obviously what that would do is that would reduce your cost of capital in half. Because like we had Ingrid just got funded yesterday, another real client. She got her first tranche of funding, seed capital, and she had referred herself in. So her cost of capital was 5%, not 10%, because she referred herself in. So yes, you can game the system like that. And some of you who are affiliates are offering each of your clients to be a sub-affiliate of yours. So you get overrides and then they can refer themselves in and reduce their cost of capital, which is fine. So again, if you have questions, comments, concerns, feel free to call us. We get together most mornings to go through the program. It's working really well. It's far exceeded the volume of participants that we anticipated. The capital markets are open. See lots of loans, lots of funding. Certainly during COVID at its peak, business lending nearly stopped, but now it's wide open. So let us know if you need anything, and we'll see you back tomorrow. Bye-bye.